Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So I am on to the next step of making this journal, and I just wanted to show you the process all the way through. So this part of the process might not need that much of an explanation, but I at least wanted to kind of tell you what was going through my head as I was choosing the pages and building the signatures. So that's what we're going to do today. Right now I'm just showing you the 4 different stacks of papers that I have. One of them is a stack of maybe about 10 or 15 scrapbook papers that I chose, and I basically just chose them because of the colors. All of the colors that I chose are on the cover or look nice with the cover. So yeah, that's kind of really all I think about when I choose scrapbook papers. And then I also have a stack of children's book pages, a stack of just regular vintage pages, and then a small stack of ledger papers, maybe 4 or 5. So right now I'm folding up all of the pages, and just to kind of tell you what I'm thinking about as I'm folding them up, I kind of like to build in a couple of pockets in the process of folding and cutting down my pages. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just choosing maybe 2 or 3 pages that I think would look nice with pockets on them. So I'm just folding the pockets, wherever I feel like there should be a pocket. This isn't necessary. You could just put in papers later to make pockets, and that's something that I've done as well. But this just makes it easier as you're folding to just think about, where a pocket might look nice. I tend to like to cover up some of that white space. So if there's like a single-sided scrapbook paper, I like to cover some of the white space with the pocket. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I'm thinking about as I'm folding up the pages. And then with vintage book pages and children's book pages, if there are any illustrations, I kind of like to keep the illustrations completely without cutting them off. So if a book page has lots of illustrations like these, then I'll probably just fold them up so that they fit into the journal rather than cutting off the pages. However, that's not necessary either. You could just cut them completely down to the size that you need them to be and cut off some of the illustration. That's completely up to you. And then this is my stack of vintage book pages, which I'm just folding down. I'm not making any pockets out of these except for this very large page. I'm not going to make a pocket. I'm thinking that I'm just going to have like a giant fold out page in the journal. So that's basically what I'm making here, and just measuring that to fit into my journal. I do that with this other large ledger paper as well, just to kind of give myself a couple of big giant fold outs in the journal. I just think it looks cool, but you could just cut them down to fit into your journal as well. All of this is purely preference. So like I said, with this large sheet, I'm going to fold it twice, and then I'll cut it down to the height of my journal, and then it will flip out a couple times in the journal. So now I'm cutting all the pages down, and yeah, that's pretty much self-explanatory, I suppose, but I will say that my journal is 6 inches by 8 inches. So what I tend to do is I'll cut it down to the height of the journal at 8 inches, but I'll cut the width of the pages maybe about a half an inch shorter, so about 5.5 inches instead of 6 inches, just because when I put them in a signature, they tend to overlap the edges of the journal a little bit. So I'm just saving myself a step later. Some of the pages I'm cutting down way smaller just because I like the look of having some smaller pages in there. Like I said before, that's completely just your own preference, what you like to do. But yeah, some of the pages are like 4 by 6 or something like that. And then again, with the children's book pages, like I said, I don't want to cut off any of the illustrations necessarily. Since I'm doing a recreation journal, this journal, I did not cut off the illustration, so I kind of wanted to keep it as similar as possible to that journal. So yeah, I'm just folding the pages down so that they'll fit into the journal without having to cut them. This page, I'm actually going to just fold up the spine of that page set. So that's 2 pages connected to each other. So I'm just folding up the spine so that it will fit into the journal. And then this is just a single sheet, and I'm cutting that down to fit into my journal. And I'm actually just going to take these papers and sew them directly onto another page that I plan on binding into the journal, if that makes sense. So these pages I set aside for a reason, because in that original journal, I had made some very large full-size envelopes. So I just kind of wanted to share my process with you guys, and hopefully this will make sense. Like I said, my journal is 6 inches wide. So I'm folding up these envelopes to be 5.5 inches wide. And then I'm going to make a few markings. I'm making one marking at 2 inches, which is going to give me my top flap. And then I'm marking at 10 inches, which gives me the full height of my journal. And then I'm marking again at 10.5 inches, which will be my bottom flap to my envelope. And then I'm just going to connect these lines, and I will show you where I cut. And it's probably easier to just watch me rather than me try to explain it. But yeah, I'm just going to connect the lines, draw in a few little diagonal lines where I want my flap to go. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And then, yeah, and then we'll just cut it out. And I'm not going to do any gluing today because I want these bound into the journal. And I'll actually show you how to do that in the next video. But yeah, you'll see the general shape of the envelope at least this time around. So now that I have all my lines drawn in, I'll show you an up close of, and then we'll go ahead and cut down this envelope. So I'm starting at the very bottom line, and I'm just cutting all the way across. And now I'm going to cut in where I put those diagonal lines and just cut off the edges, as you can see here. And now all we need to do is fold it up. So those are the 2 side flaps to the envelope. And then that is the bottom flap. And then the larger one is the top flap. And that is it. It's a very simple envelope. And we'll be able to bind that into the journal with one of the side flaps. So now I am taking another sheet of scrapbook paper that I had laid aside, and I'm going to do like a little circle cutout to kind of mimic the cutout on the front cover. And this is going to be a photo frame of some sort, just that I'm going to bind into the journal just for fun. So I just used my stencil and drew a circle, and now I'm cutting that out. And then later on, I may do some sewing around this. I'm not sure, but later on we'll glue it together and it will just be like a little photo frame in the center of a signature in this journal. So I'll go ahead and cut this down to 8 inches tall so it will fit into the journal, and it will be like a full-size photo pocket, if you will. And now I have separated all of my papers by type, and I have about 40 pages here. So I am planning on doing 5 signatures with 8 pages in each signature. So I've chosen my first page of each signature, and now I'm just going through and trying to choose papers that look nice together. There's really not a whole lot of thought put into this, other than I don't want too many pockets close together, and I kind of want the pages to look nice together. So that's really all I'm thinking about. And like I said, these large envelopes are going to go in the center of the signature. So I just pulled that one side of the envelope out so that I can bind that in, and then we will glue that up in the next video. Sometimes I put 2 scrapbook pages that have just a single side back to back with each other so that the white pages face each other. And that kind of gives me an opportunity to make some side loading pockets if I want. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I'm moving fast. I'm always thinking about how this is going to look in the end and how I can make my life a little bit easier when I go to bind it and go to add more pockets later. And sometimes this doesn't work out perfectly. On this last signature, I changed my mind about the front page of the signature and kind of moved some things around and took some pages out of another signature. So it's definitely not the end all be all if you put some pages together and then decide you don't like it. You can always go back, pull some pages out, and change some things around. Nothing's final until you bind it. So. So now I'm just going to reorder the signatures in the order that I want them to go into the journal. And now I'm going to take these single children's book pages, and I'm just trying to figure out where I want to sew them into the journal. And then one of those children's book pages, I'm going to do something a little special with that one. So I commit to putting that children's book page there, and I will do something with that in a moment. And then with this other children's book page, I'm actually just going to sew it into the journal. So I'm just trying to find the best place for that. And I decided to just go ahead and put it there. And then back to that first children's book page, I'm going to mimic what I did in the original journal, and I'm going to make like a little cutout on the page right in front of it. So basically I'm just marking where I want my little cutout to be, and I'm just going to use my stencil and draw a circle, and then I'll cut that circle out so that you can see the little girl through the page preceding it. And I just think that's a really cute thing to do. It just adds a little bit of extra something to the journal to make it interesting. So I only end up doing one of those in this journal. and I don't think I'm going to do any more later. But yeah, it's just kind of an ode to the original journal, if you will. And that turned out super cute. So that is it for the day, guys. I hope you got something out of that. And I will see you in the next video where we're actually going to do some decorating and binding. Thanks for watching. Bye.